I'm now joined by Giovanni Moceri. He's the host of the GioMoShow, talking about Horizon League basketball and specifically the Oakland Golden Grizzlies. But today we're going to talk about Wright State and Virginia. Giovanni, thank you for joining me from your car.
Of,
It's a lot of
of
dedication
course.
to this episode.
Of course, man. I always appreciate anything to do with March Madness, and I appreciate you guys reaching out and kind of allowing me to give a voice of the Horizon League to the rest of the nation.
Yeah, so this Wright State team specifically, I mean, we could probably just go right into the number one thing here that has caught my eye for this matchup is that they have just struggled against good interior play this year. That is going to be a severe problem against the Virginia Cavaliers of all teams. But just, I guess, really just kind of go into that. Like, am I overlooking this? I've seen Wright State play once. They got utterly destroyed in the paint. Am I right on this? Or is there maybe some hope for the Raiders that I'm not seeing?
So I do agree that that is an issue, and on my show I recently just interviewed Wright State's play-by-play voice, Chris Collins, and he mentioned that as one of the first things, especially with Virginia's size and pretty much the biggest guys on the front court for Wright State are about 5'9" and 5'8", and one of their biggest guys, Kellen Pickett, was a freshman of the year in the Horizon League, but ultimately still a freshman. And him and Michael Amari Bay, those are the two guys in the front court you'll be hearing pretty often. Chris told me that they're going to have a very tough night, and it would probably be wise for them to kind of spread the ball out to more beyond the arc, even though it kind of goes away from how they've played this season. It has been a lot of inside play, which works a little bit better in the Horizon League, where 6'9" is pretty much about the biggest guy you'll see. Occasionally there'll be a 7-footer who plays like 10 minutes a game, but it's not something super common in the Horizon League. But Virginia is loaded with it, so that is definitely going to be a struggle for Wright State. But luckily, they're very capable from beyond the arc, even though they haven't had to rely on it in volume throughout much of the season. But they do have some accurate three-point shooters to kind of spread things out.
Yeah, in a very spread out scoring team. I mean, their leading scorer, Michael Cooper, the freshman, comes off the bench. Seems to me that he's not even their best player. And they can just kind of hurt you from a lot of different ways, right?
That's very true for this team, and you can even see. So I was there in Indianapolis for the Horizon League tournament. I got to see them play in the semifinals against Northern Kentucky, and then the championship game against Detroit Mercy. And within that semifinals game against NKU, you had who I would say is probably your headline best player for Wright State, T.J. Birch, a transfer from Ball State. He was the newcomer of the year in the Horizon League, defensive player of the year. He's like number 6 in the nation in total steals. So like he's a pest. But within that semifinals game, you had him lead in scoring and then hand things off to Michael Cooper, who would have the second half, end the second half with 20 points by himself just in that half. So even within the game, they could kind of hand it off to one guy or another because they're so spread out and because they're so even. And even a player who may not stand out in the stat sheet, but one of their three-point shooters, Solomon Callahan, he's had a couple of games this season where he's been the one taking over. He's the one with 25 plus points, 6 made threes. He did it against my Golden Grizzlies twice this season. So that is what's dangerous about Wright State, is that it can come from anybody.
Yeah, so Burt, you mentioned first team All Horizon League, Amari Bay, second team All Conference. Those were the two honorees, and then Pickett and Cooper both made the All Freshman team. So just kind of giving more credence to this spread out environment. But for Wright State to pull off the upset, and you are someone who is familiar with Horizon League 14 seeds picking up unexpected victories. Who is going to be the guy? Does it need to be Birch? Is there someone that you feel like is just kind of well set up for a big game in this matchup?
So I'll go back to my interview with Chris Collins, and he was saying that kind of similar to what Oakland did against Kentucky. And funny enough, they're both those games will be played in the state of Pennsylvania, or Oakland played in Pittsburgh and out Philadelphia for this matchup with Wright State. But the three-point shooting is something that he emphasized, and I'll emphasize kind of on his behalf, between both Solomon Callahan, who I mentioned before, but also Dominic Pangonis. They're both those guys are shooting about 38% from three in the overall season, but they were closer to 40 in Horizon League play. So those guys needing to make their threes, and that's kind of typical for any kind of upset, is that a wild 3-point shooting night is enough to kind of overcome anybody in the country. So I'll emphasize those two guys, Pangonis and Callahan, as your deep ball threats. Michael Cooper can shoot it from three as well, and even you can go to Logan Woods, who only had didn't play a big role, but in that game against Detroit Mercy that won them the league, he made 2 threes in a row that really flipped that game. So anybody who can shoot it from three for Wright State is going to have to make them to make this an upset.
So kind of strange here because they were top 50 team in terms of three-point accuracy on the season, but then only just fifth in Horizon League play. Is that something that is just kind of fluky, just a lot of good shooting teams in the league, or did Wright State really kind of fall off in the second half?
So their percentage is pretty high, but honestly, there was multiple teams in the league this year that were over 40% from three this season. So it was just something that is not necessarily super common for the league. Maybe it's not uncommon, but they're also low in volume as well. Kind of similar. Like I think Detroit Mercy ended up being the top 3-point shooting
Yeah,
team in the
that's what
league
I'm
by
saying.
percentage. But if you look at their volume and shots and 3 points attempted, they're very low, near bottom of the league. So maybe that's just a case of being efficient in few opportunities, not necessarily in like the high volume teams like Purdue Fort Wayne, where they shot a ton of threes, but they may have been more around like 35% as a team. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily like a fall off or something they're not capable of, but just kind of sometimes the way the numbers work, and especially in the Horizon League, sometimes it can get wonky.
Yeah, I mean, and the numbers certainly bear out always a key in these potential upsets that Wright State could just get red hot here. Some of those guys that you just got into, but I'm starting to think a little bit more about the defensive end because for Virginia, how excellent Virginia's defense has been, I mean, it may just come down to whether or not Wright State does make enough shots to hang in it on that end. But going back to the beginning, I am worried about their ability to keep Virginia at a reasonable number here. I mean, Ken Pom projects the Cavaliers at 81. That feels like a pretty good number just looking at the matchups. I feel like Wright State's going to have to keep that in the 70 to 75 range to have a chance. And one of their biggest issues is just the fact that they give up a lot of assisted baskets here. And Virginia is one of the top 50 teams in the country at it. Chance Mallory, Dallin Hall, they have playmakers on they have elite playmakers on the court at all times, and that could be an issue for Wright State.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree that it's going to have to stay lower in scoring because I'll go back to their game against Northern Kentucky where in the semifinals it was 103 to 90. I don't think you could play that kind of game against Virginia. It's going to have to be more like the game they played against Detroit where it was 66 to 63. I don't think it'll be that low scoring on both sides of it, but yeah, it's going to have to be more of that kind of flavor because that kind of keeps the pace a little bit more under control. You don't let a near top team in the league in Virginia able to go and run out and use that kind of physical talent to just outrun everybody. Keep them on a leash, kind of keep it close. Like you can't let them get free baskets. I mean that goes for any upset. You're walking on a tightrope. You cannot let easy baskets go through. Everything's got to be challenged and difficult.
So, what is the best defensive weapon for the Raiders here? What is the one way that they could try to disrupt Virginia?
You it is tough to say to for it to be disruptive for Virginia, but I mean, you're going to have to lean on the defensive player of the year in the league and TJ Birch, and you're going to have his hands around the ball as much as you can in whatever scheme they run, and you're going to have to get some steals out of him because you're top 10 in steals per game, you're top 6 in total steals. Like you're going to need that. You're going to need those extra possessions, and limit turnovers is an obvious one that kind of goes along with that. But Wright State's going to have to use Birch and the rest of their defense with active hands and get themselves some extra possessions.
Yeah, Birch, by the way, number one in the nation in steal percentage this year, just slightly ahead of Duke's big weapon Malik Brown. And it's funny because these are two very, very different sized guys. Like, am I reading this right? 160 pounds for TJ Birch?
Yeah, and especially when you see him, like I got to see him in the press conference. I was sidelined for the Horizon League tournament. Yeah, he's not a big guy, but that kind of leans into him being able to kind of be a pest, sneak around, sneak his hands in, and get all those steals. But yeah, he's gonna look quite small around that Virginia roster.
I mean, that's little for a high school guy. I mean, even Virginia's little guy, Chance Mallory's listed at 186. So Birch's going to be at a size disadvantage against a whole lot of guys on this Virginia team. But it is a Cavaliers offense that, while turnovers are not a weak point, they're also just kind of hovering around the national average all year long in terms of giving the ball up. And in fact, that was their biggest weakness in ACC play. So that could be a spot where they are vulnerable.
Yeah, and if you, I mean, in this kind of matchup, if you see any weakness, any kind of opening like that, then that's going to have to be something that's emphasized in attack. So, yeah, I would I'll reemphasize again, kind of really pay attention to steals and if Birch can get the ball like he has been this season.
Yeah, I mean, to me, keys to the game, I feel like so much of this is going to come down to that end of the court. And Wright State might make shots, they might not, but can they generate a fair amount of turnovers, get those second chance points, and then do they just get absolutely pummeled by Testa Ritter and Johan Grunlow and Ugana Onyenso in the post? Because that just seems like the simplest thing to me, where if we look back, if Virginia has 50 post points, then this is a runaway blowout. If it
Yeah,
doesn't, then we can start to get into the second, third, fourth questions of this game.
yeah, and honestly, so kind of relating back to Oakland's upset over Kentucky. Kentucky did have multiple 7-footers and a big size advantage, but they weren't necessarily as involved in the way Kentucky played that year as I'm seeing Virginia's big guys being involved in their action this year. So I can't I won't necessarily make the comparison between those two games, but I think that's going to be item number one is because Wright State is pretty much at every position, like you mentioned, going to be at a size disadvantage. I would be shocked if there's any other strategy for Virginia outside of attacking that size advantage. So I do have a hard time believing. I mean, I love the Horizon League and all that, but we'll be realistic here. That size advantage is going to be crippling for Wright State if they can't spread it out and kind of keep it away from those big guys.
Yeah, I mean, I just, in thinking about this, I just kind of can't get over the Robert Morris experts I know telling me time and time again that if those two had met in the Horizon League final, Robert Morris was going to beat them because their big guy, Chitakudis, just was wreaking havoc on the Raiders both times they played. So Testa Ritter is going to be a whole different level of a problem, but we will see. This should at least be a fascinating game to watch. And Giovanni Moceri, you are going to be covering it all. You'll be covering the Horizon League into next year as well, I assume. Where can all the good people find you?
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Tyler. It's been great kind of talking about the Horizon League like this. But yeah, like you said, you can follow me on my Instagram. My personal is at Moceri_Giovanni. And the JoMo Show has its own page as well at the GIOMO Show. And you can find me on Twitter at GIO Moceri WXOU. Whether it's Oakland, whether it's Horizon League basketball, might do some kind of local high school football and basketball coverage in the Metro Detroit area. So if you'd ever need to pop in and get to know the area a little bit, I'd be a great place to find. So I'd appreciate anybody going in and supporting mid-major basketball in that way.
Yeah, go support Horizon, some good Horizon League coverage. Go follow Giovanni, and thank you for joining me.
Of course.